everyone. Welcome here today, and thank you for being here. Today, we're going to be spending some time with two great authors, Toni Draper and S.L. Kassidy. So, welcome to both of you today. How are you?
You. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, awesome. I think what we'll do today is we're going to go right into listening to an excerpt from Toni Draper. She's reading from Back in the Saddle, which is going to be released in 2 days. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very exciting. And so it's open now for pre-orders, I know, on the Desert Palm Press website, and you can get 10% off for that. So if you go over to Desert Palm Press, you can get the 10% off by inputting 10 DPP when you order your copy. And with that, Toni, why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about Back in the Saddle and set up the scene that you are going to read.
Okay. Here's the book. And it is a friends to lovers romance, rodeo romance. So I am, the scene that I'm going to read from is from chapter 6. And let me read the back because that'll kind of help set it up for you. It's a little blurb that's on the back of the book. Deep in the heart of Texas, ranch and rodeo lands, freelance writer and barrel racer Kendall Greer, a woman with the heart of a poet, finds it broken and herself in a loveless relationship. As soon as she decides to put all thoughts of romance aside and focus on rodeo instead, she crosses paths with roper Deb Mueller, and they soon find themselves falling cowgirl, hat over boots, hard and fast for each other. But together learn it takes time to trust and love again. So again, I'm going to be reading from chapter 6. And in this scene, Deb is, it's really about Deb's feelings as she's realizing that she has feelings for Kendall. So let me go ahead and begin. This here's a catch rope. It's what you use to catch the calf. Deb held a smaller rope in her hand, and that would make this the tie or piggin string. You always want to carry two with you, just in case. Tuck one down into the back of your jeans, behind your belt, and carry the other one in your mouth like this. See? She demonstrated by putting the rope between her teeth. Yuck. Kendall followed Deb's instructions, then spit in the dirt and pretended to pull nylon frays from between her teeth. Cute. Don't worry, you'll get used to the feel and taste. For now, we're only going to be practicing roping the calf, so we won't be needing the pigging string. Deb tucked the cord into her wranglers as she'd shown Kendall, then picked up the larger lariat and began slowly circling it over her head. You want to swing the rope with your arm while you take aim with your eyes. It's all about hand-eye coordination. See how big the loop is? You want to keep it a lot larger than what you're trying to rope. It'll be easier that way. With her arm fully extended, Deb let go of the lariat. The knot landed with a thud in the earth, causing a small cloud of dirt to rise up. After you've gotten it over the calf's head, when you pull your arm back, the movement will tighten the slack. She handed Kendall the rope. Here, you try it. First, just get used to the weight and feel of the lasso in your hand, then practice swinging it. Kendall did as she was told and shown. That's it. Good. After a few free throws of the rope, Deb told Kendall she was ready for the next step. She went into the barn and returned pulling a wagon on which she'd balanced a bale of hay and a dummy. The fake calf's head was made of painted plastic and trailing two long prongs of steel in place of a body and legs. Deb jammed the metal stabilizers into one end of the straw bale and turned it around. They were standing behind the pretend bovine, about 6 strides away, and looking at the back of the tiny head. Well, at least I don't have to worry about it getting away, Kendall joked. Not yet. That'll come later when we're roping real calves, Deb promised. For now, get a good swing in your arm and practice letting the rope fly over the animal. See if you can grab the head or a horn or anything. The first few attempts sent dirt and hay flying. Had it been a real calf, she would have probably knocked the poor thing unconscious. When Kendall managed to get anywhere near her target, all she could do was slam it in the head with a hard knot. I can see this is going to take a while, but I'm not complaining. Deb moved to stand behind Kendall and shadowed her movements, guiding her gently. Relax. Let me lead. Follow me. She spoke near Kendall's ear softly. Deb couldn't be sure if she had moved forward or if Kendall had stepped back, but one thing was clear. The space that existed between their bodies when they started had shrunk considerably. She closed her eyes and felt the lids flutter and her heart skip a beat as she leaned into Kendall's essence. At that very moment, Kendall turned slightly her way, causing Deb's lips to lightly brush her neck just below the ear. The brief but searing contact was like a hot iron brand upon her lips. As she struggled to regain her composure and catch her breath, Deb opened her eyes just enough to see the tip of Kendall's tongue move to wet and part her full and sensual lips. Deb's heart began pounding in her chest. Beep, 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 beep. The pulse of the screaming alarm echoed the throb Deb felt within. She quickly moved to silence the unwelcome intruder, unwilling to accept that what she had been experiencing was only happening in her head. The feeling had been so real, so intense. Without opening her eyes, she pulled the pillow out from under her and wrapped her arms around it, searching for a return to the all but evaporated images of her dream. Unfortunately, it appeared her phantom lover would not be back for a visit, at least not right away. She sighed, illuminated the dial on her watch, and set the snooze in her head. Deb had always been fascinated by her dreams, although this one didn't exactly require an in depth analysis of her subconscious. She was definitely attracted to Kendall. Deb knew it and wasn't denying reality. What she didn't know was how she could go about shaking it. The woman was definitely not available. What the hell is wrong with me anyway? She'd been alone for quite some time, and no one else had ever provoked such nocturnal, tantalizing, and teasing. She wondered what would happen next week when she came face to face with the object of her fantasy. How would she look at her without remembering every delightful minute of her deliciously delectable dream? And that's chapter 6.
Great job. I really enjoyed that Deb's realization of her feelings and her internal dialogue while she's trying not to freak out. Really nice. Enjoyed that. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure many people are looking forward to your new offering. So, again, I hope that they will check you out and that they pre order, or if not, they get the book as soon as it becomes available in 2 days. Oh, my good. 3 days, 2 days.
Yay.
Oh, my God. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So I think what we'll do is we're going to ask some questions to Shay, since I know Shay had a book come out recently, July 26th, I think it was. So not even a month ago, Shay. Congratulations.
Almost a month ago, but thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's, I took a look at Nature of the Beast and it was really interesting. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what it's about? Why? That's a big question, right?
Because the problem is I was trying to figure out if I want to tell, because I kind of consider it a twist in the story, but then it's also been out almost a month, so I guess people have read it, so might as well.
Yeah.
But so the story is about college student Tala Grayson, and she's an introvert, suffers from anxiety, likes to stay home and nerd out, play video games, and then her she considers her sister gets this job at what's supposed to be a great restaurant, but it turns out it's a sex club, and she gets sent to investigate if it's a great job or not, because significant others aren't allowed in, but she can go in. And she ends up running into the club manager, who is kind of fascinated with her because it's very obvious she doesn't want to be there, but she is there. And they get to talking and find out they have a lot in common. And what essentially ends up happening, though, is you find out that Tala is a werewolf.
All right.
And yeah, she ends up, halfway through the book, she transforms to save the club manager, Sitlali, from one of the patrons, which then adds all kinds of other complications in their lives.
That sounds like an excellent storyline. I'm sure that your readers love it. I know you have a following, and I've seen that. This you've only had it out less than a month, but you have a lot of great reviews already. So a lot of 5 stars, and you're doing wonderful. So tell me though, Shay, what inspired the idea of this book?
Um, it's just I like mythology and fairy tales and stuff like that. So, wanted to write a werewolf story first off. Also, you don't see a lot of female werewolves in things. And then also, I started to wonder because I also like animals, and so wolves themselves are actually very social. So, what the hell would a introvert werewolf be like?
Right, right.
And
Because wolves are part of packs, of course.
Yes. So, as people, because people are social,
Mm-hmm.
introverts are kind of looked at as weird.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered, would wolves look at introverted wolves as weird?
That's a fascinating storyline, actually. So I can see where you wanted to follow that and see what could you create with all those themes.
Yeah. So it kind of went from there.
So what part of the book was your favorite or most fun part to write then?
I would say trying to think of what werewolf culture would be, going off the idea of them kind of being wolves, but also kind of being people, and just trying to figure out how would they approach an introverted werewolf.
Right.
Yeah.
So did you do a lot of research for wolves in general and getting comfortable with those personalities as opposed to an introverted person?
No, in fact, I actually did werewolf research instead.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So kind of with the wolf thing, I just went off of stuff that I already know about wolves.
Mm-hmm. And I would think the werewolf mythology is pretty large too, so you'd have to find your way through that and then pick over what felt authentic for you.
Yeah, and that's really the thing too, finding out what do I accept in werewolf lore that I want to put in the book.
Right. Well, that sounds fascinating, actually. And anything having to do with those, whether it's werewolves or vampires or whatever it is, those extraordinary types of lives that we create up in our mind, but which have this whole mythology behind it. I find that is just wonderful to delve into and figure out how you're going to make your mark on that. So yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. So tell me one more thing. I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more. What comes to you first? Is it the plot or the characters? How do you manifest a story?
Typically, it'll turn into like one maybe scene that I want to write. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. But I can't just write one scene. So yeah, now I have to build a story around, well, how did we get to this? What's the aftermath of this?
Right. How do we set it up? How do we end it? Sure.
Who are the people involved in this?
Right. So you do it about the scene then, basically, and then you build it from there.
Yeah, usually there's like a scene that's just in my head, and it's like, I guess I have to write this. But like I said, I can't. I'm not a person who can sit there and write just one scene and just be happy and go, okay, it's done.
Right. You have to keep on tinkering with it.
Yeah. Like I have to figure out, how did they get into this situation? How did this scene come up?
Right.
And again, what's the aftermath of it? So even like with Nature of the Beast, I think the scene that got me was just Tala transforming into a werewolf. Like, well, what the heck would bring that about?
Right.
So now figure out, well, how did that happen? And then also, if you transform into a werewolf in a club, what is the aftermath of that? So where do we go from there?
Sure, because there are a bunch of people that see that, and it's not something that would normally occur. So I would expect that there would be all types of reactions, and building up to that must have been pretty intense. So yeah, that sounds like a great setup. I can see where you would want to explore it. And now I have to read it so I can see what happened.
Well, was it the werewolf thing?
Yeah, it was definitely the werewolf thing.
So now I feel good about disclosing that.
Yes, yes. Now everyone has something else to look forward to, not just her, an introvert working at a sex club, but also the werewolf thing. Sounds good to me. Hey, Toni, I don't want to ignore you too long. So why don't you tell us how you came up for the idea for Back in the Saddle?
Well, I live in South Texas. Rodeo is kind of a way of life around here. Everything from small town rodeos to big arena rodeos. And actually, I have a nephew who the movie 8 Seconds was filmed in part here where I live. And I have a nephew who starred as the middle Lane Frost in that movie. So it's kind of like, I guess, in the family, I guess you could say. I love rodeo. I'm fascinated by all of it, but in particular, barrel racing and roping. So that's why I included those two events in my book. But,
And have you done both of those?
oh no, I've only admired others do them.
I suppose it's like asking someone who likes watching gymnastics, have you done that? Have you done flips? So I guess that doesn't always happen, but that's great. Yeah, I can see if you're surrounded by that and you grew up with that, then you definitely would feel comfortable writing about that. So that sounds like a great setup for you. And 8 seconds, huh? That's pretty cool. You like brushing with a celebrity kind of there.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me? So which book is this of yours? How many books have you had published?
This is the third.
Okay, so congratulations on that. And tell me, how are you doing now that your third one's coming out? Do you feel more confident navigating the publishing process now that you've had a couple of books under your belt? And where are you with all of that?
Well, I definitely learned something every time. A lot of it comes from working with the editor. I learned how bad some of my writing is. So with this last one, with this one, Back in the Saddle, I kind of felt like, or at least given the editor's remarks, it's like, okay, am I taking a step back now? Because I felt like I was doing okay with the second one. And then I just felt like I had some technical issues, I guess you could say, writing issues with this particular one. And I really don't know what the cause of that was, other than I started this book back in the pandemic when we were all still, holed up at home. And now that I'm back at work, my writing has really slowed down. So, yeah.
I think the pandemic did affect writers in many ways, that we might not have even realized, actually. It just kind of slowed down our process, or we got a bit rusty. For my own part, I know that I struggled a bit because I didn't have interactions with other writers as we normally do, at least, every so often. So I understand what you're saying there, but I doubt that. I think that it might just be that, you're trying a different book, a different setup. So that's where things can break down a little bit. So, but I mean, let's ask Shay. Shay, you've authored 10 books already. So how are you doing? How's your process changed from the first book to now?
I don't really think it has.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually feel like every book I get worse. I don't.
See, well, this sounds common then. Or writers that get this fraud factor or something. Like, no, I'm worse. I used up all my good words in the other books. I can't use them now.
Say, all the good ideas are gone. I got nothing now.
That's right. Well, I doubt that's true for both of you, actually. I think you both probably getting better, but you're also, because perhaps, and I'm just positing this, but perhaps because you know the process now a bit more, and you become a bit more critical because you want to get there. But I found that it's always a journey, right? I mean, no matter what project you're working on, there's always this step-by-step journey that you have, and then you go back and, you self-edit and all of that. And, so I think you're both getting better, truthfully. And that you know more about the process, more about the background of it, of constructing a good story. And because of that, you're holding yourselves to a higher and higher standard too.
Well, that sounds better than
I'll
what I
take
feel
that.
like. Like I said, I feel like I get worse.
All
So
right.
it's okay. I'll take that. I'll accept it.
So let me ask you both then. Shay, I'll ask you first. What advice can you give new authors about navigating and that process of getting published? Do you have any advice for a newbie?
I would just say don't give up.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so if you get rejected, keep going. Just try someplace else. Try again.
Yeah, and what advice could you give a new author about reading the first set of reviews?
Don't take it personal, depending on what the review is.
Okay, Toni, let me ask you the same questions. What advice can you give new authors that are navigating the publishing process? What do you think?
I would say check out the publishers and the types of books they're publishing. Read as much as you can to get a feel for, what it is that they put out. And like Shay said, don't give up. Just keep going. And as far as I'm going to jump ahead because you were probably going to ask me this, but as far as the first reviews, I read mine and I was like really, really riding a high for a little while. And then all of a sudden, bam, all the bad ones started coming through. But as far as the negative reviews, at least the ones that have a grain of something that you can use in them, take it constructively, like, okay, make yourself think, well, maybe what they're saying is true. Let me look at that, even if it's hard for you to do. I think it can really help you. So yeah, you got to have a little tough coat of armor on, but I think it's good to read. I know a lot of people say don't read them at all, but I couldn't help but read them knowing they're out there, Matter of fact, I'd love to have more reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because you want to know what they're saying you, and especially you want the good reviews because it kind of props you up and validates the time and the effort that you made for the book. But then when someone comes through and especially when they pan you for something arbitrary, just something that's a personal preference and nothing to do with the story itself or the technicality or whatever, that can be pretty hard to take. So I can certainly understand why. It's good to know what they're saying about you, but on the other hand, you don't want to read it if they're just bashing you for no real reason other than that they thought the villain was a bitch or something. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. But so I hear you on that. So let me ask, what genres are your books? Toni, tell me first, what genres are your books? And we write in different genres in the future, do you think?
Well, two of them are romances. And the third one, the last one that came out is a mystery, but of course it has a romantic element. So it's kind of a romance too. That is basically, other than just plain old fiction, those are the genres that I read. I don't think that I have it in me to write science fiction. I just don't think I could create my own world. There are things that interest me, but I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to write anything different because who knows what tomorrow will bring.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, that's kind of where I am.
Okay. So, and when you talk about romance, you're talking about contemporary romance?
Yes.
Okay. So no historical romances for you.
I think that would require too much research that I won't have time for while I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I love, one of my favorite books is historical fiction. So I just don't know that I'm capable of it.
Well, I was thinking about this. One of my books, I do flashbacks into the author's past. The protagonist's past, and it turns out that technically those time periods were historical fiction because they were like in the 80s and 90s. Does that make you feel old? Because it makes me feel old.
But can you not?
I was
historical fiction.
We didn't come here for these personal attacks.
I was going to say I've lived through a lot of it, so maybe if I just write what I've lived through, that's historical fiction.
That's what I'm saying, and you don't have to do any research. Just think back to your childhood, teenage years. You're all set. I'm not attacking you. Okay, Shay.
How dare you? The 80s was 20 years ago.
I know. Right. 20 years ago. That's how I feel. Last week. Shay, tell me about the genres that you write in and whether you're thinking about writing in any different genres at some point.
I would say that I write romance and drama.
Mm-hmm.
But I like throwing some angst because you can't have drama without angst, I guess.
Sure.
But I'm also very much into. I want to write historical fiction, but I like throwing magic in it, so it turns into fantasy.
Right, right, right. I was just thinking that
So
with the werewolves, that would be fantasy, wouldn't it?
yeah,
As far, I mean, we haven't proven they're werewolves, so I guess
right.
it has to go
Now,
there.
the last series that I wrote, the Warrior Class, it started out as I'm gonna do some historical fiction. I'm gonna do like a fictional look into Alexander the Great, like if Alexander the Great was a woman. But
Yeah,
then I said, no, let's throw some magic.
yeah.
Let's have gods. Okay, this is fantasy now. It's done. It's over. It's fantasy.
Yeah, well, I guess you could do historical fiction with fantasy, though. I mean, I know that there are tons of books out there where they reimagine historic events in the purview of a woman instead, and
Right.
instead of the man. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely something that's doable. And I know that I would read something like that. I'd love to see that where the woman is the one that's the driving force and doing all the historical things that we've read about over the years. Keep that in mind. You should go back to that.
The theme gets
So
stuck in my head.
that's right. That's what we got to do. We got to get that one part stuck in your head, so you have to write a whole book about it.
No, that's
It'd be
it.
all
That's
good.
what happens.
So let me ask then about themes and tropes. So Tony, you can start off with this. What themes do you like to explore in your books, and what tropes do you like to write or read?
Well, my first book was a second chance romance, and the mystery kind of is its own thing. But this Back in the Saddle is a friends to lovers, and I'm currently working on. I guess I'm about halfway through, maybe a little more so, an enemies to lovers, and that one was more challenging because it's like, how do you make people go from enemies to lovers?
Mhm.
And especially working in what I wanted to write about, the plot of the
Mhm.
story. So, but I'm having fun with it, and hopefully I'll have time to finish it up before the end of the year.
Yeah. And so what kind of themes do you like to weave into your book? What type of evolution do you like your protagonist to go through? What,
Well, I like to write about things that I know a little bit about, and usually I will only write about places where I have been.
mhm,
So Hawaii tends to pop up a lot in what I write, because we normally go there every summer. Texas, of course, because I'm here, but I'm from the mid Atlantic. I'm from Maryland, so sometimes that comes in. But as far as themes, I mean, I like to see my characters change and be challenged and grow. Um, but for example, this my work in progress. I'm the way that I started it and the way I envisioned it when I started it has completely changed as I've been writing it. It's like the
mhm.
characters took over and they're doing their own thing now.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but it's I don't know if that really answered your question, but there it
Sure it
is.
did. I guess I was looking a little bit about, well, what kind of conflict are they dealing with? Is it an external conflict where there's a definite problem that they have to overcome, or is it internal where they're having to do this type of evolution and do this kind of self work, that
Yeah,
sort of
it's
thing?
actually been both. I mean,
Mhm.
it depends on, I guess, the book and the plot and the way the story is going. But there was a lot of psychological stuff in my first book
Mhm.
and relationship stuff. So, and in the one that I'm writing now, it's a little bit more than that. I don't want to give too much away, but
Okay, we won't make you admit to the werewolf in the middle of the book yet. You're put on notice.
now you're safe. I don't think I could do that. I don't.
Okay, we'll leave that to Shay. So, Shay, what kind of themes are you exploring in your books, and what kind of tropes do you like to write about?
So themes I'm really into. I like found family.
Hmm.
Get to learn and accept that family isn't always your blood.
Hmm.
Family you pick up along the way.
Hmm.
Um, I also like self acceptance. A lot of my characters tend to have to figure out who they are and accept who they are and learn that it's okay to be who you are.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
And as far as tropes, one of my biggest things that I love is domestic fluff, which I never realized, but somehow in every book I've written, the characters accidentally live together, so I can get domestic fluff.
That works. You gotta get them in proximity,
Yep,
so that they can do it.
every single time.
All right, cool. All right, so I wanted to get to know you guys a little bit better with some what I call some quirky questions. So I thought I'd try it out with you both. So first thing I want to know is, do you have any pets, and if so, what kind of pets do you have? Toni?
I have no pets.
No.
Okay.
Right now I have 3 dogs. Over the last 15 or so years, I have adopted seniors and special needs dogs. I've had as many as 12 at a time. The shortest time I had any was 3 months, and the longest I've had one is 10 years. So
Wow.
probably one of my favorite heart dogs was a blind and deaf 15-year-old dachshund who Foster agreed to take from the animal shelter, thinking he was 5 with no health issues. So the rescue contacted me because they know that I like older dogs. And I took him in, and we had him for 4 more years. And I mean, not only was he blind, he didn't have eyes. So he was a sweetheart. But yeah, dogs definitely have a special place in my heart and in my books. I have vowed, and so far has stuck, and I'm sure I'll stick to my vow that I write about my dogs in my books. They make appearances in the pages. So so far, I think I have about 5 or 6 dogs that have shown up, but I have many more to write about. So.
Oh, nice, nice. And did you? I'm sure you read it in the news about how those 4,000 beagles are being transferred around the U.S. to be adopted and all of that. I have to tell you, there's a bunch that just came to my area too, and my wife is trying to talk me out of adopting one. So we have enough dogs, we have children, we don't have room for another dog, but you know. Obviously fostering a dog is so important, and adopting them too. They need their forever home, but definitely, even if it's temporary, they need someone who really can love them and support them. So that's awesome. And Shay, you say you don't have any pets, right?
No pets.
No pets. How about hobbies? You got any hobbies you want to share with us?
But besides writing, once upon a time, I used to draw.
You used to draw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once upon a time. I like riding my bike.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, drawing, that is something that's kind of like writing, where you need that mental space to actually do it. So if you're busy, it kind of falls by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's really what happened. Is eventually I used to do both. I don't want to say equally, but then writing got more and more the thing I wanted to do. So I ended up stopping.
Well, obviously. You have 10 books, so hey, made your choice there. But maybe you can get back into that drawing too. I'm sure people would love to see the drawing again too at some point. You just gotta get there, get that time.
I need the time to do it.
Yeah,
being employed does not allow that to happen.
I know. I think a lot of people don't realize that most writers, they're not writing full time. They have a day job. They have another job that they're committed to, and that really does eat into your creative time. So yeah, I get that. How about you? What kind of hobbies are you indulging in, if any, right now?
Well, other than all my work with dogs, I like calm hobbies, I guess you could say. I like beach combing, sailboating, and the interesting part of that is I live nowhere near water, so I'm kind of I'm feeling frustrated right now, so that's why I have to go on vacation a lot.
Right, just so you can get to the water. Sure.
Yeah.
It's funny when you said that. I was like, isn't she on, not near water anywhere?
Not at all.
Texas. Okay. So let me ask you both, have you, what kind of jobs, or have you ever held a job that was unusual or interesting in the current or past? Something that your readers might not know about. And let's go with Toni. Why don't you go first?
Well, I don't think any of them have been super interesting. I've worked in education since I was 14 years old in some way, shape, or form. Started out in a convent school for girls, where a lot of students came from Mexico to learn English. So I'm a Spanish teacher, and that's kind of how that all got started. But no, I'm kind of ordinary, I guess you could say.
I doubt that very much, but you're probably just not thinking about it right now.
Well, I
But
also spent about 25 years working for various newspapers in different capacities, but that's kind of like normal too. It's not like, although now kids are like, newspaper, what's that?
what's that, right? That's right. How about you, Shay? Any unusual or interesting jobs currently or past that you've held?
No. So funny enough, also basically
Hmm.
been in education my whole life.
Hmm.
From 14 onward, my
Yeah.
summer jobs was always working at camps, which were typically run out of schools. I'm currently a social studies teacher.
Hmm.
The only thing I would say is weird about this, I teach high school now. I used to teach middle school.
It's
And for
different.
anyone who's a teacher, they'll tell you you're not supposed to teach middle school because the middle school kids are crazy. I
It's
love
You
my
true.
know,
middle schoolers. I miss them so much.
it's interesting because I have kind of I've gone the same path. I taught middle school for probably 10 years, or a big
Me
chunk
too.
of my career. And when I moved, and I'm now teaching high school. And when I moved to high school, I thought, oh, wow, I'm finally getting out of middle school. Well, let me tell you, I don't know your experience, but the ninth graders were worse than the seventh and eighth as
My
far
tenth,
as,
my tenth
discipline.
graders were worse than my seventh graders.
Yes.
So
That
it's like,
blew
no,
my
I didn't
mind.
get what I thought I was getting. So I don't know how much of it has
Yes.
to do with them coming out of virtual learning in the pandemic because I'm kind of new to high school. But
Oh
Okay.
yeah, it
gosh.
isn't what I thought it was
I
going to
got
be.
to experience high school a couple of years before the pandemic hit.
Mhm.
So I got to see how my 10th graders behaved before pandemic. And it was still just like, you guys are crazy. I would take my 7th graders back in a heartbeat. Or my 7th
You know,
Right.
graders.
I remember years ago having a principal of a school tell me that it wasn't until they turned 15 that they start calming down again. So I have hope that by toward the end of the year, maybe, and actually my 10th graders there's a huge difference in ninth and 10th grade, at least the kids that I have in my classes. So I have hope.
No, for me, I've taught some juniors and some seniors. So the 16 and 17-year-olds, yeah, you definitely see a difference. But
Hmm.
15, they're still just like, oh, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So isn't my son. He's 15, so I can tell you that's true. And I kind of have a similar story. I started out in middle school and then went up to high school teaching English. And what was funny about it was that once I hit the high school, I taught seventh grade English. They came up to my high school, and I ended up teaching them again. So I would have some of these students maybe 3 or 4 times, before they graduate high school, which was pretty funny. Got to know each other pretty well. But yeah, they're crazy. Middle school's crazy. Ninth isn't better. I hated teaching ninth grade. seniors,
They don't get better
seniors
until
were
senior year.
awesome. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
senior year.
Senior was awesome. They would bring me coffee and donuts a lot of times. My first period class, and
Because they're just
they
ready. They're
know.
like, I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah, they're ready for life. They've got it together to some extent. And even if they don't have it together, they know enough not to do stupid things as much. At least not in front of a teacher. So they at least get to that level. So I hear you, fellow educators. Excellent. Um, Thanks for that. Why don't we? I just want to ask a few more questions. I think since we have a little more time, tell me your favorite place to write and why. So, Shay, you want to tackle that one first?
I don't know if I would say I have a favorite place. I usually write in the same spot though, which is currently where I'm sitting,
Mm-hmm.
and my computer's in front of me. But that's only because it's summer right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have some place, as long as I have my iPad
Mm-hmm.
and I have a quiet space, I can write pretty much anywhere. I actually prefer to write on my iPad because if I'm on the computer, I have a trillion tabs open. I will go from the writing document to my trillion tabs and get lost for hours. Whereas
Right.
on my iPad, I make sure I have a bare minimum of things on it. And then also I can write by hand, which I actually prefer to typing.
Hmm.
And then if I need to, I can play music, which I should more often because it actually helps me write. But again, if I'm on the computer, I don't play the music because I'm going to look at stuff on the computer.
At least you know yourself. That's good. You place some limitations
That's
on
half the
yourself.
battle because I'm
Yeah.
not stopping me from doing it.
That's right. Well, I understand that. Yeah, definitely. And that's good that you know yourself so well that if you really want to get the writing done, okay, I'm on my iPad and I'm just gonna do this. Yeah, that's cool. How about you, Tony? What's your favorite place to write and why?
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite place, but it tends to be the place where I write the most, and that's in bed, because it's lots of times when I'm into writing, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, I get my best ideas in the shower and when I'm sleeping. So if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I have this really great idea, I have to hurry up and write it down because if I don't, by morning it'll be gone, or at least most of it will be gone. And I'm not only old, but old school, I guess you could say, because I actually write a lot longhand first, and then before I even start putting it into the computer.
Mhm.
So it's just, because I don't have the computer with me 24/7, and I don't, and when I have an idea, I just jot it down. So basically I have a whole bunch of notes that I bring together when I start writing.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
can
I
add,
used.
yeah, I can add to it on the computer once I've started it, but no, I have to have my little skeleton there before I flesh it out.
So do you wake up in the middle of the night and start jotting down in the dark your newest idea that you just dreamt about, basically?
Oh yeah, I keep a notepad, something to write with, and a little miniature flashlight of some sort. Absolutely.
That's definitely important. I used to do that too. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, write something. I wouldn't want to wake up my wife, so I do it in the dark. And in the morning, I'm looking at this jumble of words going up and down. What the hell did I write?
I
I
tried
get
once
that.
and then never again.
Yeah, yeah. It's too hard to figure it out afterwards.
How did I
It
think
was
this
it
was
was
a good
brilliant.
idea?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I know that's a good idea, I just can't read it.
That's right, right. So let me ask you both: are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plantser? Do you know what those words mean? So basically, do you plot everything out by writing an outline and trying to stick to it, or are you a see it by your pants, just start writing and see where it goes, or do you do a combination of the two? So Tony, you want to tell me?
Probably a combination. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
general idea of what I want to do, but I don't use an outline, and I'm not that organized. And if I were, the characters would kick it to the curb and have their own way anyway. So
Mhm. Has that
that
changed over time, or have you always kind of done both together?
no, I've always kind of done both, because once I get started, then I might start. I don't really make an outline, but I have an idea of where I want, what I want to do with the story and which direction it's going in.
Yeah. How about you, Shay?
I make an outline.
You make an
Whether
outline?
I'm
Okay.
going to follow that outline as the story continues, who knows? But I like
Mhm.
to work with an outline just so I have a general idea of what I'm trying to do. I also like
Mhm.
having a general idea of how many chapters I'm going to be writing.
Yeah.
It helps me because I always get stuck in the middle. So if I'm stuck in the middle and I'm slowed down, I can at least tell myself, hey, you made it 10 chapters, you only got 10 left. Or look, this is the idea, you just have to figure out how to write it out. So
Hmm.
plotting it out helps me. Not to say that I stick to the plot line, because characters grow as you write, and
Hmm.
I can get halfway through a story and be like, oh, this doesn't make sense for these characters now, and have to figure
Right.
something out. But
And
I
do
definitely need
you
a plot.
do you update your outline if that happens?
Yes, yeah. So if the characters outgrow the outline, to me, then the outline is junk, and yeah, I have to start over.
Hmm.
But that's just okay. This is what these characters want. No problem.
Right,
So as
right. You
long as
gotta
I get
go
my
with
one scene,
it. That's right. Get
whatever
that
that scene is
werewolf
that's
in.
stuck in my head, I have to do that. But other than that, characters feel free to do what you want.
Yes, great idea. Yeah, that's right. That's non-negotiable. This is my scene. All right, so we have a little bit of time left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask both of you to tell us what you want others to know about your books or your works in progress, or what's coming up. Whatever you want to say. This is your last chance today. So Toni, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you want your readers to know?
Well, I'm currently working on a short story, and it's actually going to bring together characters from all three of well, I shouldn't even say that, my two Desert Palm books, and one I hope to be a Desert Palm Press book, the one I'm working on now that I haven't finished yet, so obviously it hasn't been accepted. But still, I have a character from that book getting together with the others. So that's been kind of fun to write, and I'm hoping people read it. Then maybe they'll be interested in all the books just because of the characters that are there. I'm also working on a full-length novel that's set on the border of Texas and Mexico, and it deals with Border Patrol. That's all I'll say about it now, which is kind of a touchy thing right now, but it's it's a lot of fun, and it's always interested me, and I see a lot of Border Patrol, not necessarily here where I am, but I go to the borderland a lot for different reasons, and so I've experienced quite a bit of I'm intrigued by it, I guess you could say.
That sounds exciting. Thank you, Toni. And Shay, want to tell your readers what you're working on or what you want them to know?
Okay, so I'm making an attempt to write a short story that revisits my characters from the Warrior Class series. So just to kind of catch up with them, because I feel like the third book, while it does have an ending, it leaves us wondering, are these guys going to be okay? And so this short story is just kind of check in to let you see that, okay, no, they're all right. They're still working things out, but what happened in the third book, yeah, all of that was traumatic, and everybody's kind of figuring their lives out.
Yeah. Well, that sounds exciting. I'm sure your readers will love to see what's going on with those characters. So I hope you're successful. Both of you.
I'm also hoping I'm successful because I want to see what's going on with these characters.
That's right. Those characters need to tell you right now what you need to write for them.
So, the slow pace, this goes to, I actually didn't have a plan with the short story. I just knew that I wanted to show that they were okay. And this is where I do need to plot stuff out, because I don't have a plot and I don't have an outline. So it's taking a lot longer than usual.
Oh, well, you have like another month, right? So plenty of time. You can get it done.
I need the cheerleading, all the cheerleading.
That's right. So what they're talking about, the short stories, there's going to be an anthology produced by Desert Palm Press, which will probably come out in January, and that will include several of the Desert Palm Press authors. I've submitted something, and hopefully we'll get these stories from both of you. And there are several other authors that are submitting short stories that are either prequels or postquels to one or more of their books. So it's very exciting, and I believe that the proceeds will be going to a charity, which will be announced later. I want to thank both of you, Toni and Shay, for taking the time to chat with us today and letting us get to know you. Really appreciate that. And thanks to all of you who are watching now or later when the recording is up. We hope you'll check out Toni and Shay's works at Desert Palm Press. At their website, and you can actually get 10% off of the ebooks. So that's a great little incentive for you. So I hope you check them out, and I want to wish everyone a good day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.